What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of SEC State of Mind, presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Taylor Davis, joined as always by Jason Campbell. And if you've been paying attention lately, we've been telling you the guests aren't stopping, and we're here to deliver. We've got another incredible guest joining us here today. If you're watching on YouTube, you already know who it is. But if you're listening, allow me to welcome in Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lea. Coach Lea, thank you so much for joining us. We were just chatting a little bit. This time of year is slow to the outside perspective, but the job truly never slows down for you.
It doesn't. This is and it's an important time too, because there's only a few times where you have just the ability to kind of pull back and plot forth, and that's what we're doing. We got recruiting upcoming, but the team returns at the end of the month, so you want to make sure that not only are you ready for them, but you've also kind of thought through what the next steps look like. And it'll be an important few months for us this summer to try to have the best season we can have.
Totally. We always talk about these upcoming months and the impact that they can have. Well, I'm going to get started with you, and I'm probably going to ask a question that you field a lot, and one that you probably will continue to talk about until this team takes the field in August. But what was built upon in the past couple of years, the momentum that was created for this Vanderbilt program? What's kind of the balance that you're having to strike between, yes, look at what we've accomplished, but it's time to turn the page to the now?
Yeah, it's not hard for us to turn the page. I think that's true for everyone involved internally, and obviously externally. I think it's easier to kind of hang on to the seasons, and that becomes what you talk about. But internally, we turned the page. January 11th was our first team meeting. I mean, we have a lot of work ahead of us, and yet I think you live in the wake of what you create. So it's not that we don't enjoy the positive vibes and the energy, the ripples that kind of the last couple of years have sent out. I think there's a lot to be enjoyed about that. And so you have awareness of that. We know to a man in the program that, we're looking for more. There's higher aspirations, and that just means there's a lot of work to do. But, we enjoy the positivity that surrounds the program and the energy that's here in Nashville right now about Vanderbilt football. That's a cool thing. And, it's not something that we're interested in losing.
And Coach, you talked about, before we just came on, we was talking about, guys when they leave campus in the summertime and how you have recruits on and for visits, and then you can't wait for your guys to get back. You're the first coach I've had a chance to talk to about, Ahmad Hardy, the incident that happened to him. And I've been in that locker room before as a player. We're both the same age. When you leave and go home in the summertime, all these guys always think that everybody is happy for them. But they also have to understand you're kind of a target as well. And what are the things you talk to your kids about when they're leaving and everything, the importance of understanding who you are as a collegiate player, especially nowadays, because now there's money involved. You make money like a professional player nowadays.
Well, first of all, just everyone at Vanderbilt is behind, with, pulling for, praying for Ahmad and his recovery. I mean, what a dynamic player, but what a special person too. And so that's first and foremost. I had a chance to talk to Eli yesterday and just check in with him. I know those things can be so hard, for the head coach and really for everyone involved. This is tricky. I think there's a level of trust built amongst your team, and yet, we step out in the world and there are no guarantees. Life changes in the unforgiving instant. And we spend a lot of time on this. This is important to me, that we can't control everything, but, we are responsible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with where we are and who we're with. And what we say is, the Vanderbilt football warrior, our identity is discipline, respect, and spirit. Those three things, and our identity travels. It travels anytime, any place. And so, we spend a lot of time, and, I've got one of Brock Taylor went to Europe, and so we spent time, I'd go through and I kind of know where all the guys are headed. And, hey, Brock, does identity travel to Europe? And he's like, it does. It's like all that kind of stuff. So we have some fun with it, but part of that is also headlines. We show headlines years past, things that have happened in May. And then I have, I think, sent out now 2 or 3 updates, just because this is for us this year, 6 weeks of time from the end of spring practice to when we return. So 2 or 3 updates, just around reminders, that, look, you want them to be able to enjoy their time. You want them to be able to enjoy the people that are around. Just reminders of the things that are going on right now around us, and for them to be vigilant. And that's all we can do. But, this is for me as a coach, this is probably the hardest time of year because the guys are away. And I love it when they're here because I feed off their energy, but also when I can see them, when I can have them, check in and know where they are and that they're training and see them every day, that means a lot to me.
Yeah, I completely echo that. Our thoughts and prayers are with Ahmad as well. You mentioned the word discipline, and having covered you and your program over the years, you hear that, you hear brotherhood, belief, but belief is a practice. It's not just an idea. I got you, Coach. I've taken a lot of notes over the years covering you. And I think back to, when you took the job, and obviously there was a lot of excitement, and you were very adamant about what you were going to build there, and having experienced what it's like to go there, your voice echoed and it carried weight. We're a few years into this now, and looking at the progress that has been made for Vanderbilt and how process oriented you've been about it from the jump. Kind of carrying on my first question, what in your eyes is the next step of that process?
Well, we feel like we have tangible results we can point to now. So there's proof of concept. And just like anything, I mean, the level of admiration I have for these players who have signed on and continue to sign on for something before it had manifested in results, the courage that took, the vision that took, I appreciate them for that. And these guys that have now left our program have left a legacy for us to kind of carry forward. But what's next is this is about sustaining, and elevating. I mean, we honor the people that have put the work in to this point by not just trying to copy and paste, but actually like to grow the results, to grow the impact of the program. We want Vanderbilt football to be respected and feared. That's what we want. And that means that this isn't about 2 years. Now, we're not guaranteed anything. I mean, the way we talk in our program, it's about winning a national championship. It's about winning an SEC championship. It's about checking all those boxes. And we realize to be the best team, we have to take advantage of every day we have. So that's what we're going to aspire to. That is what we're going to aspire to every year that I'm here in this role. We certainly appreciate the ground we've covered, but we all recognize that there's more ahead of us. And that next gap, that sustaining result, elevating result, amplifying the program, that may be the hardest gap for us to close to this point. So we not only have to double down on our identity and our process, but we have to continue to strengthen process where we can and elevate our systems to support the type of winning we want to do here.
Well, Coach, I admired what you guys have done the last couple of years. Like you said, you built this program, and I think y'all guys are sustainable just because the belief is there, as Taylor mentioned. But a lot of that has to do because this is your alma mater too, and I know, to be in your alma mater, there could be pressures of that you want to do certain things. And how do you balance the two of it's your alma mater, but it's also, this is your team? How much pressure do you feel of that? But how much of that comes from you've been a person to walk that campus and you know what it takes to be successful there? How much of that plays into it?
Yeah, look, being that this is home, it's my alma mater, it's my hometown too. So I realized after year 3, this realization, after our second 2-win season, that you can only come home once, So I needed this to work out, but I think beyond that, honestly, like that first 3 years, 2-10, 5-7, 2-10.
Yeah.
I think you learn to let go of expectations a little bit. You learn to stop trying to think about what this can be and just live in it for what it is, and to enjoy it. I mean, being home creates added emotion. I think a little bit added pressure. I think that the highs are really high, the lows are really low. I can't walk outside this building and not run into someone who knows me or that I know from growing up, and also at Vanderbilt, I think I really feel a responsibility to this fan base. You got people that have struggled and stuck with a program that's fallen short of expectation for so long. And now you hear these kind of redemption stories. This is where I was when you guys beat Alabama, and we all won because I didn't go to the bathroom the entire game. It's like, okay, I don't know if that's sustainable, but you start to kind of like, stitch these stories into the fabric of what we're creating, and it becomes really special. I mean, none of this lasts forever, and so I want to enjoy it, honestly, for where it is right now. Knowing that there's so much more we want to accomplish, and we want to keep growing the program, but really just to know that we've built something here that we can be proud of, that's worth showing up every day and investing in it. This has become less and less about, again, hometown alma mater for me, because this is really about a program that I love and I care about. It's a great challenge that I get to take on with people that I love and care about. I don't, because of all the blood, sweat, and tears in this, and I mean, it's been excruciating in the best of ways. I just don't know that this can be replicated, so like, it won't be forever, but I'm going to enjoy it while here. And I think the hardest part of this, when it's done, is going to be, breaking up the band, so to speak. I love who I work with. I love the team. This is such a special moment for us. And we want to live it out every day. So that's kind of where I'm at with it all. I appreciate that it's my alma mater. I appreciate it's my hometown, but this is really more about this program and specifically the people that have signed on to it. And I want to show up and do the best I can for them every single day.
That's awesome. I mean, speaking from experience living in Nashville myself, I mean, like, the shift is very evident, the buy-in. I mean, you guys have that home field advantage. The stadium renovation is gorgeous. Like, all the things that were being talked about, seeing them in actuality now has to be so gratifying. But like you've said, that next step is there for the taking. And you guys recently wrapped up spring ball. And I think, for at least the beginning of season, it's going to be difficult for, especially us on the media side, to not talk about who is Vanderbilt without Diego Pavia, who is Vanderbilt without Eli Stowers. But when I look down your roster, Coach, I mean, you do have a lot of returning big hitters. I mean, Cole Spence is still there. Langston, I mean, there's Martel Height. Langston moved on. Martel Height is still there. There's so many guys. Cedric Alexander, who's been there since, I don't know, he was 15. I mean, he was so young when he came into college. There's so many pieces that learned so much from the past 2 years' experience that are still there. And then obviously you've got this wave of excitement. And of course, the quarterback position will continue to be a focus. But what is kind of the makeup starting to be of this new team and some of the old but exciting new as well?
Well, I think you got a group of people that are interested in kind of showing what our program's become beyond. The story of this program has never been about one person, certainly not about me. Diego, for all that he's done to get us to this point, and we honor that and love Diego and Eli, all these guys, Langston, like you mentioned, Corday Sidnor, Zaylen Wood, I could go on Marlon Sewell, these guys just, again, they showed up and fought for this program before there was a lot of value, perceived.
Before it was cool.
That's right. And in a lot of ways, they made it cool. And obviously, Diego led that charge. But these guys are interested in showing that this is about more than just a couple of people. It's beyond just a flash in the pan. This is something that has been built on the backs of so many people that have invested in it, and a number of those guys are here. We've got to make some key decisions with respect to who's playing quarterback, and the offensive line will kind of take a new shape here, though we're excited about that. Defensively, like, we return a ton of production. And we lose a guy like Langston, who's been and Zaylen and Corday, like I said, these and Marlon, these guys have been heart and soul players, but a lot of the production returns. So there's excitement for the players about, putting their stamp on it, like what this team is, what the imprint of this team is going to be. That's the work that's in front of us. I love the ground we covered from January through April. And all that did was set us up for kind of the most important summer we've ever had as a program. And when you're answering the quarterback question, that's not one that's insignificant, So I think what we've learned here is that we will go as that position takes us. And so that'll be really important to kind of over the next, 3 months to really start a process of elimination. And we'll settle on one before we play Austin Peay. And, depending on how that looks, we will continue to evaluate. But we're all really excited. And this post Pavia era is not just about one season. This is we can honor Diego by just continuing to build, amplify the program, and again, take it to the highest of heights. I know that's what he wants us to do too.
Yeah, I feel like, the whole Diego Pavia era, like I said, he came to Vanderbilt with a chip on his shoulder, right? Like, he gained some confidence at New Mexico State, and all of a sudden he gets to Vanderbilt. And I think you had a lot to do with that as well, right? How you was pouring into him. And Vanderbilt has always been a team I felt like every time you play Vanderbilt, like, they're right there. It was always just a play or a few plays away from getting the recognition that they deserve. And now you guys are winning those games in the fourth quarter when it gets late. And that happened a season ago. So when you look at your team moving forward to almost make the playoff run, me being biased, if it's supposed to be the top 12 teams, I had you guys in there as the top 12 teams. But what did you guys learn from that, though? And does that give you a lot of confidence and momentum where guys are carrying more of a chip on their shoulder this offseason?
I think anytime you come up short of a goal, it kind of leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. I did not like the way we finished the year two in the ReliaQuest Bowl against Iowa. I felt like we could have played better football, represent our conference better in that game, and that was disappointing. So, we have to kind of take that feeling and apply it forward. I'm the head coach at Vanderbilt. Like, you just don't sign up for these kind of jobs without having a chip on your shoulder, without feeling like you have something to prove. You feel like you're constantly counted out and doubted from the outside. And it's something that as the coach and as, players within the program, that is, you step into that every single day. I think that strengthens the brotherhood. It strengthens the bond that we all share, because there's something galvanizing about, being doubted and having to prove yourself. So we never will lose that element of our identity. And it's going to be really important to, replacing a guy like Diego, especially in his competitive mindset, is going to go far beyond any one of us. This is about how we all bind together and show up with an attitude and an expectation of one another that kind of moves the program forward. So, we have a lot of important work ahead. We're looking to grow our humility as we grow our confidence, to stay grounded, to really make sure we don't deviate from the fundamental foundational things that are so important to winning team football. And that's what we aim to do.
That's awesome. Grow your humility while you grow your confidence. I'm adding it to my notes. I've got quite a lot from you, but I'm going to add that one because I like that one. Well, I kind of expected Jason to follow up on the quarterback question, so I didn't have to, but I'll just add this little element to it because obviously, like you said, it's going to continue to be a point of evaluation. But it was such a big moment when Jared Curtis announced that he was joining you guys. And obviously, I've heard you say physically, this guy's elite. He's got the makings. He's got everything. But Jason talks about it. When you are getting acclimated, it's a different situation. I mean, you're getting adjusted to college. You're getting adjusted to the system. And so much of the offense we've gotten used to seeing from you guys in the past couple of years, we know was Diego creating if he needed to. And so that quarterback continuing to have that moxie, that confidence, I know will be important. Blaze has been there. This will be his third year. So there's a little bit of a comfort level at that point. What are you looking to learn over the next coming months before ultimately making that decision?
Well, first of all, it's got to be the person that plays the best with the other 10 players on the field. So how does this position facilitate performance in all the other positions? And, all these guys can create. They all have talent and ability. Obviously, when you're talking about Jared, there's physical traits there, and there's no one in the building that doesn't recognize that. And yet, as you say, I mean, there has to be this, he's got to be stapled to process so that the other guys can create expectation around, where the ball's going, what they need to do. That's just how the offense functions.
Sure.
I never want to be a coach that just makes the decision based off who best fits the system. I think what we need to do, especially at Vanderbilt, is we will adapt the system to fit who is best on the field. And so in this situation, I think each quarterback presents a skill set that we can subtly evolve offensively. And Tim Beck is, I feel like, one of the best at this, to accommodate whoever it is taking the snaps.
Yeah.
My personal experience, I had the honor of getting my butt kicked by Trevor Lawrence when he was a true freshman in playoffs. So because of that experience, I'm not going to put limitations on what a true freshman can do.
Right.
And so what we need to see is, can Jared, like right now, he's taking reps every day, not on the field, but in the meeting room and really ingraining himself in process. He's got to show his ability to develop in the system and his understanding, how he calls the play, how he gets us into the right protection, how he understands his progression each snap. And he can do that this summer. My expectation is that when we plug into fall camp, he has elevated himself in the way he plays within our offense. And we see the demonstrated investment that's happened over the last 3 months. And then, everyone then has to rise their level of competition to see who ultimately is the best for Vanderbilt. What I know on the back end of this process is we will determine who that best person is. And if we've done the work we need to do to support Jared so that he can grow in his experience through the summer, I think he'll have a great shot, along with the other guys who have already built this level of experience and comfort in the system. And I love what Tim Beck's doing with these guys. Trenton Kirkland, our quarterback coach, has been masterful. I'm really excited. I think they've all elevated performance, and ultimately it'll be about settling on the one that's going to get us where we want to go.
Yeah, I like that. You really don't put a deadline on it, right? Like, I know sometimes you hear coaches during summers, they say, hey, I'm going to make a decision by the second week of training camp, or I'm going to make a decision 3 days before the first game. I always feel like you really don't know until you get real competition, which is an opponent, right? Because it's not your team that knows your plays, or your defense is seeing you run this over and over to kind of know where the ball is kind of trying to go to. But I think the first couple of games, try to, who knows, you may play a player here or two. I think it just kind of goes along as you just know it when you see it and when you feel it. It's how I've always approached that position. Coach, I just got one more for you, just one fun one, and Taylor will probably take us out. 9-game schedule in the SEC now. Does that change your approach of how you practice in August to get ready for what is a tough schedule as is, now that you add another SEC game? And I need your top steakhouse in Nashville. So when I'm in Nashville, I need to know.
I was like, where's the fun part in this question? That was a hard question.
I thought you and I have the same idea of what's fun, because this is talking systems and process is.
That's true.
Oh man, okay, I'm going to start with the steakhouse.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm going to hedge a little bit. I mean, bourbon's great. I feel like Cane Prime is always like a classic to me. I've heard a lot of this Prime and Proper. There's a new spot. It's on Broadway. I've been hearing a lot about it. I haven't been yet. Halls, which is we're borrowing
me to go.
South Carolina, Charleston, that area. That's been a go-to. We use that in recruiting. There's a lot of options, and again, there's also some locals that are worth, the Jimmy Kellys, the Jack Rubies. It's just there's some things out there. So I think let's do this. Next time you're in town, let's go around, sample a couple. We'll put a list together. So
deal.
Good with that. That's a deal.
Jake's a food aficionado, so he's in.
That's a deal.
Well, you guys need to keep me updated on your lists too, because I don't get out as much as I need to. And
I got you,
Taylor. You probably have a pretty good awareness, and so we need to compare notes. But
I try.
As far as the training camp goes, this 9-game schedule is really exciting. I think the other thing too is right now the way it's plotted out, this will be the last year of the single bye week, for the next few seasons, which almost to me is as big of a deal as the 9 games, because we're really going to have to pay attention to how we're sustaining performance. So yes, we're going to make sure we're getting the work we need to get done. I do believe that there's a week in training camp where it needs to feel like training camp, and we need to push physically and mentally and emotionally and all those things. But each player only has 2 hamstrings, so if we burn those out early, there's nothing we can do to make up for that late in the season. And so much of, sustaining performance and again, getting to the playoffs is winning in November. To win in November, you need to be whole, you need to be healthy. That's not something you start paying attention to midway through the season. I think you gotta start with the end in mind. And that's certainly what we did.
That's awesome. Well, I have one that I wanted to close with because, Jay, truly some of my favorite coach meetings ever during season are with Coach Lea. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. I am like the Kermit the Frog meme when I'm in coach meetings with him, taking notes at the speed of light, because you have such a philosophical outlook on all of this, on coaching, on football, on building young men, all of it. And I heard you talk recently a little bit more about your story. And starting in baseball, you were at Birmingham Southern, and you talked about having some struggles. And looking back now, you can see it was probably a mental block. The yips wasn't talked about as much back then. And that if you get so fixated on a long-term goal, sometimes you can hold it too tight and you can't really be your best. And even hearing you talk about that second 2-win season, realizing, okay, I may need to let go a little bit. I think that shows up a lot in how you coach. And even the perspective you were able to have on the playoff situation last year, you immediately addressed it as, we're not victims. We could have done X, Y, and Z. There's no mistakes. How much of your own experience, be it good or bad, do you see show back up in your ability to coach in a day and age of college football that is consistently changing?
Oh, well, everything. There's a poem. It's titled Ulysses by Tennyson, and it starts, I am a part of all that I have met, though much is taken, much abides. And it's this idea that all your experience delivers you to where you are, and it creates the perspective. I think if we're paying attention, we get some things when we give our attention to them. That requires us to get off the surface of everything. That's kind of become my challenge every day to myself, is to not live on the surface of everything, to actually dive in, invest, learn, feel the pain of those hard experiences, feel the joy of the great ones, and so through it all, you start to pick up little bits of wisdom. And you realize that everything's temporary. There's nothing that's permanent. You can You can let go of, like we talk a lot as a program, that performance is in the present. So anything that I'm doing to forecast into the future is not helping me. Anything that I'm doing that's reflective of the past is not helping me. It's about being where my feet are and enjoying this journey that we're on. That is a way for us not to hold it too tight. And these environments can become performative so quickly. They can become restrictive, and you can walk around feeling like you're getting choked every day. It's a brutal part of what we do. And so to counteract that, we make relatedness or our connection kind of the most important feature of our program. And when you start showing up for other people before you show up for yourself, meaning when you make it about the shared experience rather than the selfish experience, I think that has been true for all time. It's no different here now in 2026. Like what I will show up and do for others will help me gain perspective in my own success and my own experience. And I'm going to draw more out of it as a result. And so those are the things that we've learned in our experience, and that's what we try to apply forward. But I appreciate you allowing me to share a little bit about that. Of course. To me, for us to pay attention to what we're living through, to form perspective, to create understanding from our experiences, and to share them with each other, that makes us meaningful.
Yep. Completely agree. And to learn from each other's, which I think is such a cool aspect of what you do. Well, Coach Lea, I can't thank you enough for coming on and hanging out with Jay and I. We are so excited to see what you guys do this upcoming season. I mean, it's May 12th, but August will be here before we know it. So we hope you get to enjoy a little bit of the summer. Oh, if you're asking me, not a steakhouse, but Palato in Germantown, best Italian, hands down. We'll add that to the tour, Jason.
Name of the there's a dish. It's like the spicy vodka.
Best rigatoni alla vodka you will have. Like, there we go. Yes, injected in my veins. Jay, when you come to Nash.
See,
Jason's coming up. We're doing this at a restaurant somewhere.
100% deal.
You've been holding out
so much. Huh?
You've been holding out.
Me?
Yeah, I think I had to wait. I get Coach Lea on here to get you to talk about the restaurant.
I love it. Coach, thank you so much again. Best of luck this season. We'll be pulling for y'all.
Great to be
here, Coach. Thank you.